The entire balance of power is about to shift in Chapter 32. The first official spoiler for Chapter 32 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex just dropped, and it's absolutely insane and incredibly promising. This sneak peek is hands down one of the best we've seen lately, and I really recommend you stick around until the end of the video because it's totally worth it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because I'm putting out new videos every single day, so there will always be something cool for you to watch. But for now, let's dive right into our breakdown of this mind-blowing spoiler. This sneak peek seems to be the very last frame of the chapter. It shows Eida up in the sky, looking out toward the city as if she's waiting for Mamushi to arrive. We also see Daemon sitting on Eida's back, looking absolutely terrifying. However, the most interesting part is the text right next to them. Here is what it says: "He is a guardian, he's protecting Eida. That strength is beyond human. Its depth can't even be measured. He seems like a demon." We just saw the author officially call him a demon, and that is such a promising move for the story. I am absolutely certain that this scan is the perfect bridge to Chapter 33 and serves as the lighthouse moment of Chapter 32. Because this sneak peek even includes the author's commentary, and Ikemoto always places his words right at the end. This is the calm before the storm. Chapter 32 is going to give us a taste of the chaos, while Chapter 33 will be Daemon's big moment, but it's a starring moment that I believe will ultimately lead to his defeat. So, what exactly happened in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 32 leading up to this final scan? What was it that put Daemon on high alert? Before Daemon steps onto the battlefield, we'll likely see a continuation of the full-scale chaos in Sector D during Chapter 32. The situation is spinning out of control. Mamushi is going to keep breaking further into Konoha, completely wrecking Shikamaru's original plan. This will force Shikamaru to move on to his next option, and this sneak peek really confirms my thoughts on that. In the spoiler for Chapter 32, we can see that Eida and Daemon aren't in the city anymore. They are near their mansion outside of town. This is a huge detail. It most likely means they were moved there in an attempt to take down Mamushi within the city itself without putting Eida in danger. But if they're outside the city, it means the plan didn't work and everything is changing. The situation in the city must have become critical, forcing Shikamaru to give the order to evacuate them back to their shelter. And that shelter outside the city is the perfect place for a showdown. I think by the middle of Chapter 32, the situation becomes dire. Mamushi and his main copy break through Konoha's defenses and reach the spot where Eida is supposed to be, but she's gone. This is where Shikamaru's strategic genius comes into play. On his orders, Eida activates her clairvoyance and her Senrigan. She has to find Mamushi and intentionally reveal her location. The Senrigan acts like a beacon for Mamushi, and once he spots Eida outside the city, he heads straight there. It's right there, in the wasteland outside of town, where the battle between Daemon and Mamushi will begin. A battle that I believe Daemon will lose. But why? Why would Daemon, who easily defeated Code without his limiters and knocked out Kawaki with a single move, lose to Mamushi? I have three arguments based on the nature of his power and his opponent's motivation. I'm putting forward a theory that Daemon's reflection is actually just a byproduct of a much deeper ability, something like foresight. He reflects the very idea of damage, the intent itself. It's a passive defense that I believe works on autopilot, constantly scanning the immediate future for threats. He sees the attacker's intent a fraction of a second before the hit and preemptively reflects it. Think back to his fight with Kawaki. When Kawaki just thought about landing a hit, Daemon had already made his move. It's not just a reaction, it's knowledge of the future. The symbolism here is pretty obvious. Eida and Daemon's abilities are two sides of the same coin, two halves of Shibai's divine power. Eida sees the past and the present. Together, they are the embodiment of Otsutsuki Shibai's omniscience. And it's specifically this power that makes Daemon so dangerous, but also so vulnerable. We've already seen examples of these divine powers in the world of Naruto. Remember how Kaguya Otsutsuki could instantly travel between dimensions, or how Momoshiki could absorb and amplify ninjutsu. Eida and Daemon's powers are just like that. They aren't just ninja techniques, they are godlike abilities. And like any divine power, there have to be divine limitations. Mamushi's motivation is clear. He is obsessed with Eida. It's the obsession of Bug, who loved Eida unrequitedly. That feeling has twisted into hatred. Mamushi wants to consume her to erase that symbol of unrequited love, to take her genetic code and potentially her Senrigan. To Mamushi, Daemon is just an obstacle. He doesn't have any personal hatred for Daemon. His goal is Eida, and that is the key point. Daemon reflects intentions directed at him. But what if Mamushi's goal isn't to hurt Daemon? What if his goal is simply to grab Eida? How would Daemon's defense react to that? I'm suggesting two strategies Mamushi could use that would act as a loophole in Daemon's defense. The first is information overload. Mamushi creates hundreds of clones. We've seen that Daemon's defense requires him to know the intent. He sees it on autopilot, but his brain is still human. What if hundreds of clones attack at once with different intentions? Some attack Daemon, some attack Eida. This could totally overload his foresight system. It's unclear whose intent he would reflect during a simultaneous mob attack. Remember how in the Naruto world, even powerful techniques like Amaterasu could be overcome if the opponent moved fast enough or used clones. The second strategy is even more dangerous, an attack without conscious intent. Mamushi's clones could act as a single hive mind, functioning on pure instinct. This is something we've talked about regarding their Shinju nature. Their goal is consumption, and they move toward it like an animal's survival instinct. This could be the loophole in Daemon's defense. Because their goal isn't Daemon, and they don't have a desire to harm him. Most likely, the goal will be to avoid Daemon and get to Eida. This is the main problem for Daemon, and the reason he'll lose. Daemon's defense reflects the intent to cause harm. If there is no intent to harm, only an instinctive drive toward an object, his defense becomes useless, and he's left with nothing but his standard taijutsu. And this will be the greatest symbolic conflict of this arc. But this conflict isn't just important on the level of power or tactics. It works much deeper at the level of themes and symbolism for the entire Boruto story. If you look closely at the plot development in recent arcs, you'll notice the manga is gradually moving away from the classic good versus evil confrontation. Instead, it's exploring how different forms of attachment can shape the destinies of characters. That's exactly why Eida is at the center of this battle, a character whose ability is literally tied to love. Her omnipotence power was originally described as the result of a desire to be loved. It's a power that warps reality, forcing people to submit to feelings that aren't actually theirs. The entire emotional conflict of the current arc is built around this power. On one side, we have Daemon the younger brother, who protects Eida not because of her abilities' manipulation, but because of a genuine bond. His feelings for her have always been incredibly simple and sincere. He doesn't try to control her life or demand anything in return, he just plays the role of her protector. In that sense, Daemon is one of the few characters in the Boruto story whose motives remain completely transparent. He protects Eida because she is his family. This feeling isn't forced by omnipotence, and it isn't tied to Konoha's tactical interests or Otsutsuki ambitions. It's just brotherly love. But on the other side is Mamushi, a being who represents a broken form of that same emotion. His obsession with Eida grew out of Bug's feelings, a man who was completely enslaved by her ability. Bug couldn't love her freely. His feelings were distorted by a power he couldn't control. And when his consciousness became part of the Shinju, that emotion didn't just vanish. It transformed into something much more dangerous, an obsessive need to consume. Mamushi doesn't want to be near Eida. He doesn't want to protect her. He wants to erase the distance between them in the most radical way possible by absorbing her existence. This is exactly why their clash with Daemon takes on such a symbolic character. It's not just a fight for control over a powerful ability. It's a clash between two different interpretations of love. And if we look at Boruto as a continuation of Naruto's themes, this kind of conflict fits perfectly into the franchise's philosophy. Even in the original manga, we saw how obsession could turn feelings into a destructive force. The stories of Obito, Nagato, and even Madara were built around this idea. Mamushi could become a new version of that archetype, but unlike previous antagonists, he lacks any sense of morality. He's not going to give long speeches about pain or the unfairness of the world. His actions will be much colder and more direct. That's what makes this situation so dangerous. An opponent who doesn't look for excuses for his actions is much harder to stop. My prediction is actually very positive in terms of the plot. I think in Chapter 33, Mamushi will consume Eida. This will create the most dangerous opponent in history. Imagine, Mamushi gets the power of the Senrigan, her clairvoyance, and can see Boruto and everyone else's plans in real time. But here's the catch. He likely won't get her greatest weapon, omnipotence. I think that is exactly what Ikemoto is planning to do. I totally understand that Ikemoto wants to remove such an imbalanced character from the plot, and he'll probably do it within the next 2 chapters. Team Konoha has a massive advantage right now with Eida and Kashin Koji. One of them sees all the enemies and the past, while the other sees the future. It's just an incredible power imbalance in favor of the good guys. It's holding back Jura and the progression of the manga's story. but Akimoto also won't want to give that much power to Mamushi, because a Shinju Eida who can use omnipotence would basically mean the end of the story. Most likely, Mamushi will consume her genetic code, but won't be able to use omnipotence. He'll only be able to observe through her Senrigan eye. If my assumption turns out to be right, the consequences for the entire story could be much bigger than they seem at first glance. Because consuming Eida even partially would change the entire structure of the information balance in the Boruto world. Up until now, Eida has been the central observer of the whole manga. Her Senrigan allowed her to see almost any event in the present or past. Thanks to this, Konoha had a unique advantage. They could react to threats faster than any other force. But if Mamushi gains access to even a part of that ability, the tables are turned. Now, the Shinju gain the ability to watch their opponent's actions in real time. This creates a completely new conflict dynamic. Imagine that every Konoha strategy, every plan from Shikamaru, and every attempt by Boruto to hide his movements could be exposed almost instantly. It also puts Kashin Koji, who Jura is very interested in, right in the crosshairs. This means the usual model of confrontation will stop working. Team Konoha won't be able to rely on information as their primary weapon anymore. They'll have to act differently. And that is where the most interesting part begins. Since the Senrigan and Koji's abilities represent two different forms of time, perception, observation, and foresight, their clash could become the central theme of the next few arcs. Mamushi will be able to see what's happening, but he won't be able to predict the consequences. Kashin Koji, on the other hand, can see possible versions of the future, but doesn't always have the exact picture of the present. A whole new type of intellectual warfare could emerge between these two forms of knowledge. This also opens the door for further development for Boruto as a character. Until now, he has often been in a position where he has to react to the events happening around him. But if the world moves into a state where information is the main weapon, Boruto will have to learn how to operate under total transparency. Every step he takes could be known to the enemy. Every strategy he has could be revealed before it's even implemented. This means he'll have to become a much more unpredictable fighter. Perhaps that's the true goal of this current arc. Not just to create a new antagonist or show another massive battle, but to completely change the rules of the game. To make it so that future conflicts no longer depend only on the strength of techniques or chakra levels. So that victory is determined by who can think faster, deeper, and more outside the box. But there is one more aspect we shouldn't forget. Daemon, having lost his sister, will become even more devilish and war-hungry. His rage will be limitless, and that will actually benefit Konoha. After all, Eida and Daemon never really picked a side. They stayed neutral. Daemon never said he would fight for Konoha against the Shinju. But now, he has a personal motive that will help Boruto. This will be the start of a new era in the Boruto world, where divine powers finally move to Konoha's side. This in turn raises the stakes, and the next move will likely be a power-up for the Shinju team, because nobody is going to let the power balance stay broken for long. And what about Jura? His role in all this chaos could be key. He might use this mess to achieve his own goal, whatever that may be. It's hard to predict right now. We are standing on the threshold of massive changes in the Boruto world. The official spoiler for Chapter 32 has given us just a hint. I believe Akimoto will take the risk and break the status quo of these characters so that Jura can act, and so Konoha is left without its absolute observation. It will be painful for fans of the character, but it's necessary for the story. Definitely let me know what you think about this. Do you believe Daemon's defense can be beaten? How do you think a Shinju Eida would work? Share your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the big breakdown of the new Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 32. There is so much more exciting stuff coming up.